Reinhardt here. I want to walk you through what is going to be on the exam and what you need to know before the Unit 2 exam. So here we go. I have some code I want to show you. And I guess what's most important is what you do not need to know, just what to focus on before the exam. So we started out and so Unit 2, just recall, a lot of what we are doing now is assigning values to variables, not much more. So keep that in mind. Assigning values to variables, making a variable or an object is always a type and a name and give it a value. So we started out actually talking about objects and creating objects from a class. Here's what you need to know. You need to know how to make a new object by looking at the constructor. And if I look at these two objects being made because the word new happens, if this works in the student class, there must be, and I'll go over there, a constructor that accepts no parameters and a constructor that accepts an int and a string. And that's how I'm making those there. So you should be able to look at a class and know how the different way or ways to make an object of that class. Next, once you make those objects, you can call is a big word, a method from that class, like ask question and greeting. Ask question has an option to take in a string, and greeting must have an option of not giving an input. And if I look at that student class, that is indeed the case. Here's the ask question that takes in a string and inserts it, whatever string, inserts it into that phrase, and ask and greeting doesn't take in a parameter and just prints that to the screen. And if I look at my run, when I run the program, here it is. Okay, there's the call to those two methods. There's can you explain random numbers again? Okay, just running that method did that. S1.greeting produced yo sup dog. Okay. Next, what you need to know, 3 string methods, okay? So when we created strings, it's much like creating an object, like a student object. Strings have methods that you can call. You create the string like this, okay? So str is my string, and I can call the method length, okay? And it will count the number of characters in this string. And here it is down here. When I run it, it says the number of characters is 23. The next method you need to know is the substring method. Okay, the substring method has 2 versions, or it's called overloaded. You need to know how to use both. One that takes in a beginning and end number, and one that just takes in a beginning number. If I use the beginning and an end number, it's going to start at 2, that's character address or index 2, and stop before 5. And that's how this ANI is printed out to the screen. A partial string is ANI because it's character number 2, which is A. Okay, 0 is M, 1 is E, 2 is A, and then 3 and 4, and it stops before number 5. Again, so what does substring do? It returns a string, a part of the string. When you just give it one number, that is the starting point, it starts at that index and goes and grabs every character to the end, and that is why meaningful message here is printed to the screen, because that's that I in meaningful is character number 4. The last one you need to know is index of. Okay, index of looks for the value inside of this string, looks for that string inside of another string, and it asks essentially what index does F exist, and as you can see down here, where is that F at? It's at 7. Okay. So like we said, you can take those string methods and print them to the screen, or again, another way to assign values to variables is to write or call a method, and it will produce a value assigned to that value. So in this case, this index of produces an integer, so I'm going to assign it to an integer. And where is auth inside of another meaningful method? That is at 2. Okay. And I do the same thing here. Where is ZZ inside of str2? There is no ZZ, so this prints out -1 right here. And that's what index of produces or returns if it's not there. This one, again, same thing. I can call substring and assign it to a new string and print it out. And this takes character 4 to the end. And that is her meaningful message here, because that is character number 4 is right here. Okay. Those are string methods. So those 3 string methods, know them well. Let's see, math class. Oh, one more thing I want to add to this too. One other thing to look at is before we get to the math class is make sure you look up what integer.max value, okay, all caps, and integer.min value are, okay? So you do need to know what those are and how they are. I'll tell you what they are. They are the maximum integer value and the minimum integer value that Java can produce. So know these things, know how to write them and call them, know what those things are. So look that up as well. All right, last thing, using the math class. Again, assigning values to variables right here. There's how you take absolute value. So what's going to, assign distance? What's the value of distance? The value of distance is going to be 40, okay? Because it's going to take the absolute value of that. But most importantly, and you'll get a few questions on how to call random, the random function. What does random do? Math.random by itself just produces a value between 0 and 0.999. In this case, it produced that value, okay? If I were to run it again, okay, I would get a different value, okay? Every time I run it, I get a different value. So with that random decimal, we can make random integers by putting in some arithmetic. And we can multiply it by 10 and cast it to an int. And now every time I run this, I will likely get a different value between 0 and 9, okay? Because if this generates a 0, 0 times 10 would still be 0. So in this case, I got a 9. I got the largest value. If I run it again, okay, you will see that I get a 0 this time. Look at that. Okay, if I run it again, I will get a 6. Okay, a different time every time. Because of that, math.random generates a different value, different decimal every time. Another way to do this is if you wanted to have a minimum of not 0, is to simply add a value after generating this. So this, because of the 10, will generate a random number between 1 and 10. You can see this time I ran it, I got a 7. Because math.random makes a different decimal every time. I multiply it by 10 and add 1. This time I got a 6, and so on. So that is what you need to know coming into the Unit 2 exam. Please reach out to me if you have any questions. See ya.